So you know how Trump is signaling he wants to pull all the troops out of Afghanistan before Christmas? Other places he's pulling troops out of also. He wanted to pull troops out of Germany. Well, guess what? And you know how there's a big pushback on that? Like there's a lot, you see who really runs the country, which is Wall Street, the military-industrial complex. And anybody who says we need to end one of those wars they say they're crazy. And where do they say that they're crazy at? They say it on CNN and MSNBC. You know where they don't say people who are against wars are crazy? Fox News. Isn't that wild? I went on Fox News. I was asked to advocate for ending the wars. You go on CNN and MSNBC and do that, they call you crazy. They'll call you crazy. And half of YouTube, too, by the way. Trump administration wants all U.S. troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan by spring. Now, this is from November 17th. So here's hoping. He only had 4 years to do it. What the F? McConnell opposes removing U.S. troops from the Middle East, saying terrorists would love it. You know who else but you know who would hate it? Terrorists would love it if we pulled out of Afghanistan and Iraq. You know who would hate it? Raytheon, Halliburton, Boeing, and the military-industrial complex. That's who would hate it. So look at that. Mitch McConnell opposes Trump. Trump wants to pull out the troops. McConnell wants to keep them in. Here's Tammy Duckworth. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Steph. Look it up. I think she's a double amputee, right? She's a Iraq War veteran. Senator Tammy Duckworth from Illinois, my home state. This is what she said about Trump's wanting to withdraw military from the Middle East. She said, all of the military commanders have spoken up and said this is the wrong thing to do. We want our troops home, but not to bring them home in body bags. Yeah, let's not bring them home from war because that's dangerous. Let's not bring them home from war because if we bring them home from war, they'll die from war. What? Is she? Mm-hmm. Can I just tell Tammy Duckworth something? The number one cause of soldiers' death right now, it's not the war that they do. It's whenever not wars involved, people die. That's what Senator Tammy Duckworth is saying. The wars keeps them safe. It's when you try to bring them home from the war. That's what makes them in peril. Well, I'll let you. Here, she's going to say it herself. Here she is. You tell me if this makes sense, and if you tell me if you can notice the moment when her soul leaves her body. You can tell me if you can notice this moment.
All of the military commanders have spoken up and said this is the wrong thing to do. We want our troops home, but let's not bring them home in body bags. And that's potentially what's going to happen if this president gets his way and puts his own political timeline ahead of our national security.
It was right at the end there. Yes, those last 5 seconds, you could tell she was like, I can't do this anymore almost. So now someone else is going to get their legs blown off potentially because of her doing this. For nothing. Not for our security. She knows that we're not in Afghanistan and Iraq for our security. She basically just said, let's keep them at war so they don't get killed. That's what she said. Let's keep them in Afghanistan, in a war zone. Let's keep them doing war so they are safe.
Jimmy, war is peace.
War is peace. Tammy Duckworth sounds like George Orwell. This is when you are a tool of a party, you're an enemy to your own fucking constituency. Mm-hmm. She's an enemy to the soldiers right now. That's nuts what she's saying. And I don't know why she's saying it.
I don't even understand why we're in Afghanistan.
She's doing it in aid of the party. This is the Democratic Party changing you. This is the Democratic Party changing you. This is not her changing the Democratic Party. There wasn't a double amputee soldier who came in and turned the Democratic Party into an anti-war party. She's there advocating for more war and more people to get their legs blown off, more children to be killed, more soldiers to be drone bombed, more hell and misery to be rained on the poorest people on the planet. That's what she's advocating for right now. Why? I don't know. You saw her soul left her body. I don't know what the hell happened to her, but shame on you. Shame on you, you maniac. You're laughable, what you're saying. What you're saying is laughable. That's how disgusting and despicable Tammy Duckworth is being right now. That's disgusting. That's beyond disgusting. Not only is it insulting to our intelligence, but she's literally willing to risk other people's lives and other people's limbs to make a political point against Donald Trump. Is there a lower, scummier thing you could do? I'm going to say no. So they're proving they're all just as horrible as Trump. Even a double amputee veteran is just as horrible as Trump. Isn't that amazing? We already knew Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer were just as bad as Trump, if not worse. Here, the Democrats can turn a veteran into someone just as horrible as them. Isn't that kind of amazing? Isn't that kind of amazing? A senator standing there after 20 years of war, advocating for more war for partisan reasons. And nobody believes a fucking word she's saying. If you believe that, I've got some beachfront property to sell you in Nebraska. If you believe that, you probably Russiagated too. You're probably Russiagated. If you believe that, you probably Russiagated. You probably believe The Intercept was right in the situation with Glenn Greenwald. You probably think a lot of backwards, fucked up things. If you believe what she just said. And that's just okay. And nobody's going to go around saying, hey, she should be impeached for that, because she's obviously nuts. She's obviously risking our soldiers' lives on purpose for a political reason. Isn't that what Trump was supposed to be? That's what they're accusing Trump of doing. That's exactly what they're doing. You know how many schools and weddings need to be droned for us to feel secure, Tammy? You know how many drones, you know how many weddings and schools need to be droned so we feel secure in the United States? Zero. They don't add to our security, us killing people in Afghanistan and Iraq. It doesn't add to our security. Time to bring them home. How are they going to be in body bags if they are home, Tammy Duckworth? Statement doesn't make any sense. Tammy Duckworth is a shill for the military-industrial complex. She's a shill for something. She doesn't, I guess she lost her shame button in her brain too. She doesn't have shame. Can you imagine doing that in public? After a 20-year war, advocating for more war because you're a partisan hack? It is true. Politics does attract the least amongst us. The most mediocre of people become politicians. Thanks, Senator Duckworth. We need to take this slow. I mean, we've only been there 19 years after all. If we can make sure the situation's under control, I expect we'll be able to do a full withdrawal by next century. By the way, Tammy Duckworth, you know who ends up in body bags? So if we take the troops home from Afghanistan, they're going to end up in body bags. You know how they end up in body bags? 22 soldiers a day commit suicide because of PTSD, Senator Tammy Duckworth, which I know you know that. Yet you still advocate for more war because there's something sick happening in your brain. So it's interesting. 22 soldiers a day commit suicide because of PTSD. So it's interesting watching politicians like Tammy Duckworth, pretend to worry about soldiers' lives when they're at war because we all know they sure don't give a shit about them when they come home. "20 frickin' years. 19 years we've been there, Tammy." I guess wars are a lot like stand-up comedy, huh? It can take 20 years for you to get good at it. Here's Bill Crystal. Same page with Tammy Duckworth. "I'm told the Department of Defense has been ordered to plan further troop withdrawals from Somalia, South Korea, Germany. Trump is doing his best to weaken America, our friends and allies." Like, it doesn't even dawn on him, like, wow, we've got fucking troops all over the place. Why do we have these troops everywhere? We have 1,000 military bases around the world. 1,000. You know how many Russia has? 2? 2? You know how many we have? 1,000. You know we still don't have health care? You know they have health care in Russia? Everybody gets it. And now the neocons and neoliberals are united, withdrawing the troops and disengaging from a disastrous interventionist foreign policy we've wasted trillions on that's taken the lives of our soldiers and innocent civilians in the Middle East is being spun as weak. Do you see do you see why you don't want to run in the Democratic Party? Do you see how the Democratic Party uses progressives to give you the wrong impression that they're an opposition party? And that's why it's more insidious when progressives run inside the Democratic Party, because they ain't never taken the fucking thing over. And people still think that the Democrats oppose something, and they don't. And any Democrat elected to Congress is going to do whatever Nancy Pelosi tells them to do. Look at what they did with the CARES Act. Look what they did with the Patriot Act. Look what they did with their surveillance state. Can someone please explain to me why pulling troops out of Afghanistan is a bad thing? It's not like we don't suck at regime change. Lee Fong says, well, here's why. Lee Fong says the CEO of a defense contracting giant, Leidos, said this to the investors. Regarding Trump's withdrawal of troops, he said, "If it quiets down in Iraq and Afghanistan, it's going to get hot someplace else. And unfortunately, history has told us that there's always a place to deploy troops." Wow. So there's your neoliberal hysteria, and it's all over the place. People are saying that, we showed you, there's just nuts. CNN, they're nuts. MSNBC, they're out of their mind. Politicians, everybody. Why? Because this country is an oligarchy. It's not a democracy. It's run by a handful of fucking billionaires. This country is. It's not a democracy, you knuckleheads, which is why we're in the middle of a pandemic and we still don't have health care, which is why we're in the middle of a pandemic and they still won't give you a UBI while they shut your business down and tell you to go get in your car and get in a food line. We don't live in a democracy, you chumps. And the progressives you elected to the Democratic Party have already sold you out, you fucking morons. They've already sold you out in the biggest way they could ever possibly do. I know you still don't know what the fucking CARES Act is or what was in it and why it got passed and why Nancy Pelosi demanded that AOC and the rest of the squad vote for it, and they did. No one will ever hold their feet to the fire for that. Not one fucking news show except a fucking pothead jagoff comedian held their feet to the fire of the CARES Act. No one else will. There's other YouTube shows that lie and says AOC voted against it. She did fucking not. Again, still to this day, half of YouTube running interference for fucking politicians. Wow. And corrupt news organizations, too, by the way. They're doing that now. If you thought YouTube was pro-free speech, you got another fucking thing coming. I personally know at least 3 big-time progressive YouTubers are very pro-censorship. Very pro-censorship. And they consider themselves on the left. That's why there's no goddamn left in this fucking country. Bunch of spineless, nutless wonders who are fucking have an authoritarian streak in them, and they won't ever stand up to power. They go along with it.
They can't wait to get a contract with it.
They can't wait to get a contract with power. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I don't have a contract with MSNBC.
You don't?
No, I don't. Jimmy, do you?
Not yet.
Not yet. Fingers crossed. Hope he sells out so we can make the dollars. Come on.